I never thought my life would change during a fancy dinner at Le Chateau. I sat quietly at the long mahogany table, picking at my untouched salmon while my mother Margaret raised her crystal wine glass. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as she smiled at everyone except me. To Tyler and Jessica, she announced the perfect couple. My son, the investment banker, and his beautiful bride-to-be. Then her gaze drifted to me. Unlike Alvina here, who couldn't even finish college. Our family disappointment. The table fell silent. Forks froze midair. I wanted to disappear into the expensive carpet. But then, Jessica, my brother's fiancée, stared at me with widening eyes. She leaned forward and whispered, "Wait. The room stopped. Even my mother couldn't speak. Growing up in Brookline, Massachusetts meant living under constant pressure. Our colonial-style house with its manicured lawn and 3-car garage represented everything my parents valued: success, appearance, achievement. My father, Thomas, built his reputation as one of Boston's top cardiothoracic surgeons. Mom established herself as a feared corporate attorney at Brennan and Winthrop. And Tyler, my older brother, by 3 years, was their masterpiece. Tyler got straight. As again, Mom would announce at dinner parties while resting her hand on his shoulder. Captain of the debate team and starting quarterback. My brother would smile modestly, but I could see he thrived on their approval. I was 7 when I realized something was wrong with me. While other kids read chapter books, I struggled to make sense of simple sentences. The letters jumbled and danced across the page. School became a daily humiliation. "You're not focusing," my mother would say, slapping her hand on my homework. "Tyler never had these problems. What's wrong with you?" By 3rd grade, I dreaded reading aloud in class. Mrs. Patterson called on me anyway. "Alvina," I sounded out painfully from the history text. "In 17-7. Thank you." Snickers erupted around me. Red-faced, I forced myself to continue until Mrs. Patterson mercifully asked someone else to take over. That evening at home, Mom checked my backpack and found a note from the teacher suggesting testing for learning disabilities. "Ridiculous," Mom declared, tearing the note into tiny pieces. "You're a Blackwell. There's nothing wrong with you except laziness. Tyler reads 3 books a week." I spent my childhood watching Tyler collect trophies, awards, and praise while I collected criticism, disappointment, and shame. Dad occasionally showed moments of understanding, sitting beside me late at night trying different approaches to help me study. But Mom's dismissive attitude eventually wore him down too. "Maybe academics isn't her thing," he suggested once. "Every decent college requires academics," Mom shot back. "What do you suggest, Thomas?" "She becomes a waitress." High school brought new challenges. While Tyler headed to Princeton with a partial scholarship, I struggled through basic courses. The only class where I thrived was art, where Mrs. Winters recognized something in my detailed sketches and wire sculptures. "Alvina has extraordinary spatial reasoning and design sensibility," she told my parents during a conference. Mom nodded politely, then asked about my failing algebra grade. When I was 16, Mrs. Winters helped me enter a young artists competition. My wire-wrapped stone pendant won 1st place and was featured in the local newspaper. Mom framed Tyler's acceptance letter to medical school the same week and didn't mention my achievement. I applied to state colleges with strong art programs, eventually accepting an offer from Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Mom refused to attend orientation. "Art school isn't real college," she told relatives. "But we're supporting her hobby until she gets serious." College should have been my escape, but the years of criticism had taken root inside me. Without family support, I worked 2 jobs while attending classes. Exhaustion and anxiety led to missed deadlines. The dyslexia I suspected, but had never been formally diagnosed, made reading textbooks nearly impossible. By my 2nd year, panic attacks before exams became routine. One December morning, after staying awake for 48 hours to complete a design project, I collapsed in the dormitory bathroom. The school counselor suggested a medical leave. I never returned. Mom's disappointed sigh when I moved back home still echoes in my memory. I suppose we could get you into community college, she said, not looking up from her legal briefs. Instead, I found a tiny apartment in Somerville with 2 roommates and took a job at a local coffee shop. During quiet afternoons, I sketched jewelry designs on napkins. With my first paycheck, I bought wire tools and semi-precious stones. At night, while my roommates slept, I created delicate wire-wrapped pendants and earrings. Linda, a regular customer at the coffee shop, noticed me wearing one of my necklaces and asked where I'd bought it. When I admitted I'd made it, she ordered 3 pieces for her boutique. They sold within days. Soon I was supplying 6 local shops with my designs. I built a simple website with help from my roommate Zach and started selling directly to customers. Each piece was photographed, carefully packaged, and shipped with a handwritten note. By 24, I was making enough from Alvina designs to quit the coffee shop. By 26, I moved into my own 1-bedroom apartment and converted the dining nook into a workshop. My family remained unimpressed. During rare holiday visits, Mom referred to my business as Alvina's little hobby. Tyler, deep in medical residency following Dad's path, would smile sympathetically but change the subject when I mentioned a large custom order or new retail partnership. I gradually withdrew from family gatherings. Thanksgiving and Christmas became brief appearances. I missed Tyler's graduation and Dad's 60th birthday. The distance felt safer than their judgment. Then the ivory envelope arrived. Tyler Blackwell and Jessica Moore request your presence at their engagement dinner. I nearly declined. My finger hovered over the regretfully declines box on the RSVP card. But something stopped me. Despite everything, I loved my brother. We had been close as young children before achievements and expectations drove us apart. Perhaps this was a chance to reconnect. I checked accepts with pleasure and dropped the card in the mailbox before I could change my mind. The valet took my keys with a barely concealed look of surprise. My 12-year-old Honda Civic seemed wildly out of place among the Mercedes and BMWs lined up outside Le Chateau. I smoothed down my navy blue dress, purchased specifically for this occasion, and took a deep breath before entering the restaurant. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white linen tablecloths and gleaming silverware. A string quartet played softly in the corner. My heart raced as I approached the private dining room. I was 20 minutes late, having circled the block 3 times, debating whether to show up at all. Alvina, you came. Tyler appeared in the doorway, champagne glass in hand. At 31, he looked exactly like our father at that age. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the same confident smile. He hugged me briefly, whispering, "Thanks for being here. It means a lot." I followed him into the room where 15 people were already seated. Mom waved dismissively from her place at the head of the table. Dad stood to greet me, pulling out a chair beside Aunt Laura, Mom's sister, who I hadn't seen in years. "Look who's finally joining us," Mom announced to the table. Tyler's little sister finally made an appearance. "Sorry I'm late," I mumbled, reaching for the water glass. "Alvina, this is my fiancée, Jessica." Tyler guided a tall woman with warm brown eyes and a sleek black dress to my side. "Jess, my sister Alvina. I've heard so much about you," Jessica said, taking the seat across from me. "Tyler says you're incredibly creative." I glanced at my brother, surprised. He shrugged with a half smile. "Congratulations on your engagement," I replied, noticing the stunning cushion-cut diamond on her finger. "Tyler seems very happy." "We both are," she said warmly. But something in her expression seemed curious, almost searching. Her wrist caught my attention as she reached for her wine. She wore a delicate silver bracelet with blue topaz stones wrapped in an intricate wire pattern. My stomach tightened. The design looked eerily familiar. Aunt Laura leaned close. "You look well, dear. What have you been up to these days? Still making those little trinkets?" Before I could answer, Mom interrupted from across the table. "Alvina experiments with crafts. Fortunately, the coffee shop keeps her bills paid." "I don't work at the coffee shop anymore," I said quietly. "I haven't for 3 years." Mom blinked. Oh, where are you waiting tables now? I'm not waiting tables. My jewelry business is full-time now. A server appeared with the first course, momentarily saving me from further questioning. As delicate plates of scalloped ceviche were placed before each guest, conversation turned to Tyler's recent promotion. Youngest senior associate at Lambert Financial, Dad announced proudly. They're fast-tracking him for partner. Jessica squeezed Tyler's hand. And he still finds time to volunteer at the Children's Hospital every month. I watched my brother accept the praise with practiced humility. This was the rhythm of our family gatherings: celebrate Tyler, ignore Alvina. Yet something felt different tonight. Jessica kept glancing at me, then down at her bracelet, then back at me with a puzzled expression. Across the table, Tyler's college roommate Paul asked about wedding plans. We're thinking June at Jessica's family estate in Connecticut. Mom answered before Jessica could speak. I've already contacted 3 wedding planners who've worked with the governor's family. Jessica smiled politely. We're still considering options. My business schedule is pretty packed until fall, so we might wait until then. Business can wait, Mom dismissed. A woman's wedding day is the most important day of her life. Jessica's smile remained in place, but I noticed her spine straighten. Actually, Margaret launching our new collection is equally important to me. We've been working on this expansion for 2 years. What kind of business are you in? I asked. Grateful for any topic that didn't involve my shortcomings. Jessica turned toward me, her expression brightening. I founded Stellar Accessories 6 years ago. We started with handbags, but our jewelry line has become our signature product. My breath caught. Stellar Accessories. I'd seen their advertisements in fashion magazines. Their distinctive wire-wrapped gemstone pieces had exploded in popularity over the past few years. Stellar Accessories, Aunt Laura exclaimed. I just bought one of your necklaces at Nordstrom last month. The blue stone with the silver. What do you call that technique? Wire wrapping, Jessica and I said simultaneously. Our eyes met across the table. Something shifted in her expression. Mom cleared her throat. Well, Jessica has built quite the little empire. Unlike Alvina, who couldn't even finish college. The table fell silent. Dad stared into his wineglass. Tyler opened his mouth to speak, but Mom continued. It's such a shame. We provided every opportunity, the best schools. But some people just don't have what it takes to succeed. She sighed dramatically. I suppose every family has its disappointment. The words hung in the air. I sat frozen, my face burning, as years of careful, emotional distance crumbled. In that moment, I was 12 years old again, bringing home a D in reading comprehension, while Tyler displayed his perfect report card on the refrigerator. Jessica was staring at me, her expression changing from confusion to sudden recognition. She leaned forward across the table and whispered, Wait, you're Alvina Blackwell, A.B. Designs. The room stopped. Every head turned toward us. Even my mother couldn't speak. Jessica's question echoed in the sudden silence. She fumbled with her phone, scrolling rapidly through screens. I've been trying to find you for months, she said, her voice rising with excitement. I can't believe you're Tyler's sister. My brother looked between us, confusion clear on his face. Jess, what are you talking about? Mom regained her composure. Jessica, dear, I'm sure you're mistaking Alvina for someone else. Someone successful. She laughed lightly, but no one joined her. Jessica held up her wrist, displaying the bracelet I'd been staring at all evening. This design. It's part of our Origin collection. Our best-selling line for the past 3 years. She turned to the table at large. 3 years ago, I was struggling to keep Stellar afloat. We had investment, but no direction. Then I discovered this incredible independent artist selling wire-wrapped jewelry online under the name A.B. Designs. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. A.B. Designs was indeed my shop's original name, before I rebranded to Alvina Designs to sound more professional. The work was extraordinary, Jessica continued. Technically complex, but appearing effortless. I purchased the rights to 20 designs through an arts broker. Those 20 pieces became the foundation of what is now a $40 million company. Dad choked on his wine. 40 million? Jessica nodded, still scrolling through her phone. We've been trying to track down the original artist for months. The broker lost contact and all we had was the initial A, B. Then the original contract expired and we wanted to negotiate a new arrangement. She turned the phone toward me. This is you, isn't it? The screen displayed my old website. The amateur photography did my pieces no favors, but the distinctive wirework was unmistakable. Below the images was my artist statement written during a late-night coffee binge. A. B. Designs. Where metal embraces stone to tell nature's stories. Yes, I whispered. That was my first website. I closed it when I rebranded 3 years ago. Tyler stared at me. Allie, is this for real? Mom waved her hand dismissively. This must be some mistake. Alvina makes costume jewelry for her friends. Nothing worth actual money. Mom, Sartu? Jessica's expression hardened slightly. Margaret, I personally selected these designs because they demonstrated extraordinary technical skill and artistic vision. Our company has sold over 200,000 pieces based on these original concepts. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. I actually brought this tonight, hoping to discuss it with Tyler. We're launching a new flagship store in Boston, and I wanted his financial advice. She unfolded what appeared to be a contract. This is an offer for the original artist of our Origin collection. A creative director position royalties on all past sales and equity partnership in Stellar's jewelry division. She slid the paper toward me. The compensation package is outlined on page 3. With trembling hands, I flipped to the 3rd page. The number made me gasp. 7 figures, followed by substantial royalty percentages. This can't be right, I murmured. It's actually conservative based on projected growth, Jessica replied. Your designs have been featured in Vogue Elle and Harper's Bazaar. Celebrities wear them on red carpets. We have waiting lists for limited editions. She pulled out her phone again and pulled up photos. There was Taylor Swift at the Grammy Awards wearing earrings whose design I recognized instantly. Another photo showed a famous actress at a movie premiere with one of my necklaces. Mom snatched the phone. This is ridiculous. Alvina has nothing to do with these. She scrolled through the images, her expression changing from dismissal to confusion. Dad leaned over to look. Those do look like the pieces you used to make in high school, Alvina. Remember that pendant you made me for Father's Day? With the twisted copper. You still have that, I asked, surprised. Dad nodded. It's in my desk drawer at the office. I keep it with my lucky golf tee. Jessica was watching my mother's face. Margaret, I understand this is surprising, but I assure you Alvina's work is the foundation of our most successful product line. These designs have been valued by experts in the field and have won industry awards. She turned back to me. The American Jewelry Design Council gave our Origin collection their Innovation Award last year. That belongs to you, really. My cousin Blake whistled low. Holy shit, Alvina's famous. Language Aunt Laura reprimanded automatically, but her eyes were fixed on me with newfound interest. Mom set the phone down carefully. Well, this is certainly unexpected. Tyler reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Allie, why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said quietly. Remember Christmas? 3 years ago, I mentioned selling designs to a larger company. Mom said it was nice I found someone to buy my arts and crafts. Tyler winced. I remember. Jessica looked between us, realization dawning. You didn't know, none of you knew about this. She turned to Tyler. You never mentioned your sister was an artist. I knew she made jewelry, he said defensively. I didn't know it was this. Jessica shook her head in disbelief. The industry has been trying to identify A.B. for years. There was a feature in JCK magazine calling her the anonymous genius revolutionizing wire wrapping techniques. She turned back to me. Why did you disappear after selling those initial designs? I stared at my plate, aware of every eye on me. The arts broker contacted me out of nowhere. Offered me $20,000 for 20 designs. It seemed like a fortune at the time. I was behind on rent, my car needed repairs. I took the money and signed whatever they put in front of me. A typical artist, Mom muttered. No business sense. Jessica ignored her. The contract had a 3-year term. It expired 2 months ago, which is why I've been trying to find you. We want to do this right. Full attribution, proper compensation, creative control. She tapped the contract. This is just the beginning. We want to build our next phase around your vision. The reality of what was happening began to sink in. My simple designs, created at my tiny desk in the corner of my apartment, had helped build a multi-million-dollar company. The work my family had dismissed as a hobby had been recognized by industry experts. Celebrities were wearing my jewelry on red carpets. Dad reached for the contract, scanning it with the careful attention he gave to medical journals. This is substantial, Alvina. You'll need a lawyer to review it. I have several recommendations, Jessica offered. Independent counsel who specialize in creative rights. I'm sure our family attorney can handle it. Mom interjected, her voice regaining its authoritative edge. Franklin has managed our affairs for 30 years. Actually, Jessica said firmly, I would strongly advise against using a family attorney for this negotiation. There could be conflicts of interest. This is Alvina's intellectual property and her future career. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. She picked up her wine-glass hand, slightly unsteady. Well, it appears we've been underestimating Alvina all these years. The statement hung in the air, neither apology nor acknowledgement. Just a fact delivered, as though discussing an unexpected weather forecast. Tyler squeezed my hand again. This is incredible, Allie. I'm so proud of you. His words, simple and genuine, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. When was the last time anyone in my family had expressed pride in me? Jessica stood suddenly. I need to make a quick call. Alvina, would you mind stepping outside with me for a moment? There's someone who would be very excited to speak with you. As I rose to follow her, I caught my mother watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not pride or approval exactly, but something like reassessment. As though seeing a stranger at her dinner table, rather than the daughter she'd dismissed for 28 years. The cool evening air was a relief after the tension of the dining room. Jessica led me to a quiet corner of the restaurant's garden terrace, fairy lights twinkling in the manicured shrubs. I need to apologize, she said immediately. I had no idea who you were when I planned this dinner. Tyler mentioned he had a sister who was artistic, but he never connected you to AB Designs. It's okay, I said, still feeling dazed. I never told him. After a while, it just seemed easier not to mention my work to my family. Jessica's expression softened with understanding. That dinner was intense. Has it always been like that? I laughed without humor. Actually, tonight was relatively mild. Mom usually has more to say about my failures. Jessica winced. I'm sorry. That must have been difficult growing up. You get used to it, I said, then corrected myself. No, you don't really get used to it. You just learn to expect it. Jessica nodded, then pulled out her phone. There's someone I want you to speak with. My creative director, Natalie, has been obsessed with your work for years. As she dialed, I glanced back through the restaurant windows. Inside, I could see my family in animated discussion. Mom was gesturing emphatically while Dad examined what appeared to be Jessica's phone. Tyler stood slightly apart, watching the doorway where we had exited. Jessica handed me her phone. Natalie, I found her. The voice on the other end gasped. A. B. The actual A. B. Oh my God! For 15 minutes, I spoke with a woman who knew my work in detail I'd never imagined. She described technical elements of my designs that I'd never articulated even to myself. She asked about my inspiration, my process, my vision for future collections. When the call ended, Jessica was watching me with a curious expression. You really had no idea, did you? How significant your work has become. I shook my head. I sell decent pieces through my website and a few boutiques. I make enough to pay rent and buy materials. That's all I ever expected. Alvina, your original designs launched our company into national distribution. We've built everything on the foundation of your aesthetic. She hesitated. This might be uncomfortable to discuss, but under the terms of the original contract, you were significantly undercompensated. $20,000 seemed fair at the time, I said. Jessica winced. Those designs have generated over $30 million in revenue. The number was too large to comprehend. I felt lightheaded. That's why this new contract is so important, Jessica continued. It includes back royalties, proper attribution, creative control going forward. You deserve recognition for your contribution. Why are you doing this? I asked. The contract expired. You could have just continued without finding me. Jessica looked surprised. That would be unethical. And frankly, terrible business. We need your creative vision. The collections we've developed internally never quite capture the magic of the originals. She smiled. Besides, I like to sleep at night. Taking someone's art without proper compensation isn't how I build a business. Before I could respond, the terrace door opened. Tyler stepped out, his expression troubled. Everything okay out here, he asked. Jessica nodded. Just introducing Alvina to our creative team. She touched my arm gently. I should let you talk. I need to handle some damage control inside anyway. With a meaningful look at Tyler, she headed back to the dining room. My brother stood awkwardly for a moment, hands in his pockets. So, you're secretly a famous jewelry designer? Apparently, I said, though I'm still processing that part myself. Tyler sat on the stone bench beside me. Why didn't you tell me? All these years, Allie. You let Mom say those things about you. And all this time, would you have believed me? I asked quietly. If I'd told you my designs were valuable, that people actually wanted what I created. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. After a moment, he sighed. I don't know. Probably not. I've been so caught up in what Mom and Dad expected. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, Allie. I should have paid more attention. It's okay, I said automatically. No, it's not. His voice was firm. I knew how she treated you. I knew it wasn't right. And I never said anything. I just benefited from being the favorite. The admission hung between us. In all our years growing up, we'd never acknowledged this fundamental truth about our family dynamic. You know what's really messed up? Tyler continued. I've been buying your pieces for years. What? He nodded, a sheepish smile appearing. After you mentioned your website that Christmas, I looked it up. I recognized your style immediately. Those wire tree sculptures you used to make in high school, the way you'd bend copper wire into tiny leaves. I knew it was your work. My throat tightened. You never said anything. I didn't want to admit I'd been secretly supporting my little sister's business while publicly going along with Mom's narrative. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of his apartment. On his bookshelf stood one of my wire tree sculptures. I have 6 of your pieces. The tree was an early one, wasn't it? From when you first started selling online. I nodded, unable to speak. Jessica recognized it when she first came to my place. She got really excited about it. Said it looked like early work from her company's signature designer. The irony is killing me right now. A laugh escaped me, surprising us both. This whole situation is surreal. Tyler's expression grew serious again. Mom's pretty upset in there. I'm sure she is. Finding out her family disappointment isn't quite the failure she thought must be difficult for her. That's not fair, Allie. He hesitated. Okay, maybe it is fair. But she's also feeling blindsided. We all are. I stood up, suddenly tired of making excuses for my family's treatment. I'm not responsible for how any of you feel about discovering I'm actually good at something. I spent years trying to share my work with you, and none of you cared enough to really look. Tyler flinched. You're right. He stood as well, facing me directly. And that's on us. On me. I should have been a better brother. The simple acknowledgement was more than I'd ever expected from anyone in my family. Before I could respond, the terrace door opened again. This time, my father stepped out, his expression grave. Your mother would like you both to come back inside, he said. The dessert is being served. Is she okay? Tyler asked. Dad's mouth tightened. She's adjusting to some unexpected news. As we all are. He turned to me. Alvina, Jessica has been showing us some impressive information about your work. I had no idea. The understatement was so typical of my father that I almost smiled. It's been a surprising evening for everyone. He nodded, his doctor's face carefully composed. Indeed. Well, shall we? He held the door open, gesturing for us to precede him. As I stepped back into the warmth of the restaurant, I felt a strange new sensation. For the first time in my adult life, I was walking into a family gathering without the heavy mantle of perceived failure weighing on my shoulders. Whatever happened next, that burden had been lifted forever. The dessert plates sat untouched as tension thickened the air. Mom had composed herself, her lawyer's mask firmly in place, as Jessica continued showing examples of my work on her tablet. This pendant was featured in last month's Vogue editorial. Jessica was explaining to Aunt Laura. It's based on one of Alvina's original designs, though our production team had to modify the wire gauge for mass manufacturing. The original was more delicate, I said quietly. The curves were tighter at the stone setting. Jessica nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. That's what we could never quite replicate. There's an organic quality to your hand-wrapping technique that gets lost in production. Mom cleared her throat. Well, this has certainly been informative. However, I think we should remember why we're gathered tonight. To celebrate Tyler and Jessica's engagement. Of course, Jessica agreed smoothly, and I couldn't imagine a more perfect evening. Not only am I marrying the most wonderful man, but I've also found the artist I've been searching for, who happens to be my future sister-in-law. It's serendipitous. Mom's smile remained fixed. Yes. Quite a coincidence. Though I'm still not entirely convinced these are actually Alvina's designs. They seem rather sophisticated. The table fell silent. Dad stared into his coffee cup. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Something broke inside me. Years of diminishment, of carefully swallowing hurt to keep peace, suddenly crystallized into clarity. I was done protecting my mother from the consequences of her cruelty. They're my designs, Mom, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every single one. The same designs you've been dismissing as arts and crafts for years. Alvina, she warned. No. I set down my napkin carefully. I've listened to you tell me who I am, and what I'm worth my entire life. Tonight you're going to listen to me. Mom's eyes widened in surprise. I'd never directly challenged her before. Do you know why I left college? I asked. It wasn't because I couldn't handle the work or didn't try hard enough. I left because I was having panic attacks before every exam. Because years of being told I wasn't good enough had convinced me it was true. That's hardly our fault, Mom began, but I continued. I have dyslexia, Mom. The learning disability Mrs. Patterson suggested testing for in 3rd grade. The one you dismissed because Blackwells don't have learning disabilities. Dad looked up sharply. What? I was finally diagnosed 3 years ago as an adult. Letters transposed themselves when I read. Words jumble. It's why school was so hard for me. I turned to my father. Remember all those nights you sat with me trying different study methods? How sometimes I could understand everything when you explained it verbally, but fell apart when faced with a written test. That's dyslexia. Dad's expression shifted from confusion to dawning realization. I suspected something like that, but your mother was so adamant, because she couldn't accept having a child who didn't fit her perfect family image, I finished. A child who needed help. Mom's face flushed. That's completely unfair. We gave you every advantage. You gave me every advantage that worked for Tyler, I corrected. When I needed something different, you decided I was the problem. Tyler reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it in silent support. After I left school, I built my business from nothing, I continued. No family connections, no financial support. I worked 60-hour weeks between the coffee shop and my jewelry. I taught myself marketing, photography, accounting, all with undiagnosed dyslexia, making everything twice as hard. Jessica was watching me with undisguised admiration. My cousins and aunts sat in uncomfortable silence, and after all that I said, my voice finally betraying emotion after building something successful on my own terms. You still introduced me tonight as the family disappointment. Mom's composure cracked slightly. I didn't realize your little hobby had become so significant. That's just it, Margaret. Jessica interjected, her tone professional but firm. Alvina's work isn't a little hobby. It's sought-after fine art that happens to be commercially viable. The Metropolitan Museum gift shop carries our reproduction of her spiral pendant. The original is worth thousands. Mom blinked rapidly. Well, had we known? That's exactly the problem, I interrupted. You should have valued my work because it was important to me, not because other people decided it was valuable. Aunt Laura unexpectedly spoke up. She's right, Margaret. You've always been hard on Alvina. Even when she was little. I've only wanted what's best for both my children. Mom insisted. Success doesn't come from coddling. Success doesn't come from crushing a child's spirit either, Dad said quietly. All heads turned toward him in surprise. He rarely contradicted Mom, especially in public. Margaret, we've been wrong about Alvina. For years. Mom's mouth opened and closed without sound. I should have spoken up sooner. Dad continued, his voice gaining strength. I saw how unhappy Alvina was. How hard she tried to please us. I knew something wasn't right. But I deferred to you. Because it was easier. The admission hung in the air, heavy with implication. My father, the renowned surgeon who made life or death decisions daily, had taken the path of least resistance when it came to defending his daughter. Thomas, this is hardly the time or place, Mom said tightly. Actually, Tyler suddenly spoke up. I think it's exactly the time and place. He straightened in his chair, looking directly at our mother. Mom, you've been unfair to Alvina for as long as I can remember. I've watched it happen my entire life, and I've never said anything. That makes me complicit. Mom stared at him in shock. Tyler, you can't possibly. I can, and I am, he said firmly. Allie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I accepted being the favorite at your expense. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. And I'm sorry I didn't celebrate your success when I recognized it. My vision blurred with unexpected tears. In all our years growing up, I'd never imagined hearing these words from my brother. Did you know, Tyler continued, addressing the table at large, that I've been collecting Alvina's work for years, in secret, because I was too cowardly to admit I admired my sister's talent while Mom dismissed it? He pulled out his wallet and removed a small photograph. I carry this with me everywhere. He slid the photo across the table. It showed his office desk with one of my earliest wire sculptures prominently displayed. Tyler, really? Mom protested, but her voice had lost its authority. No, Mom. This stops now. His voice was quiet but firm. Jessica and I are starting our life together, and I want Alvina to be part of it. A real part. Not some family obligation we tolerate at holidays. Jessica nodded emphatically. Alvina's talent is extraordinary. Beyond our personal relationship, I want to build a professional partnership with her. That can only happen if we clear the air. My cousin Blake, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. Remember when we were kids? And Alvina made all those friendship bracelets for the family reunion. Mom still has hers in her jewelry box. She always said Alvina had magic hands. Aunt Laura nodded. She was always creating something, even as a tiny child. Remember that Mother's Day card she made you, Margaret? with the pressed flowers and hand-cut paper lace. You had it on the mantel for years. Mom's expression flickered with something unreadable. For a moment, I glimpsed vulnerability beneath her perfect facade. I kept every gift you ever made me, Dad said quietly. The copper wire heart from 8th grade. The beaded keychain when you were 10. They're in my desk drawer at work. Patients comment on them all the time. Each revelation hit me like a physical blow. All these years, pieces of my creativity had been valued by my family in private, while publicly, I was treated as the disappointment. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking slightly. If you all appreciated these things, why did you let Mom make me feel worthless for creating them? A heavy silence fell over the table. Dad looked down at his hands. Tyler studied the tablecloth. No one seemed able to answer. Finally, Jessica broke the silence. I think she said carefully that families often fall into patterns that no one intends but everyone perpetuates. Breaking those patterns takes courage and honesty. Mom pushed back her chair abruptly, standing with her napkin clutched in one hand. I need some air, she announced, then walked swiftly toward the exit. The table watched her leave in stunned silence. Should someone go after her? Aunt Laura asked uncertainly. Dad shook his head. Give her a moment. This is a lot for Margaret to process. She's built her entire worldview around certain assumptions about success. He turned to me with sad eyes. We both did. Tyler squeezed my hand again. Are you okay? I nodded, though in truth I felt overwhelmed. Decades of family dynamics had shifted in a single evening. The identity I'd carried for so long, the family disappointment, had been publicly dismantled. In its place stood a new reality I was still struggling to grasp. I was a successful artist whose work was valued by experts in my field. Jessica was watching me with concern. This is a lot to take in at once. The contract, the family revelations. Maybe we should continue this conversation tomorrow, when everyone's had time to process. No, I said firmly. I've spent my whole life avoiding difficult conversations with my family. I'm done running. I stood up, smoothing my dress with trembling hands. I'm going to talk to my mother. As I walked toward the exit, I felt lighter than I had in years. Whatever happened next, I would face it as the person I truly was, not the failure I'd been labeled. I found Mom seated on a bench in the restaurant's front garden, her perfect posture at odds with her troubled expression. She didn't look up as I approached, though I knew she heard my footsteps on the gravel path. You should go back inside, she said. You're the star of the evening now. The bitterness in her voice was familiar, but for the first time I recognized it wasn't really directed at me. Mom had always been bitter about something deeper, something that had nothing to do with my achievements or failures. I sat beside her, leaving space between us. I never wanted to be the star. I just wanted to be seen. She remained silent, staring at the manicured hedges. A cool breeze carried the scent of roses from the nearby garden. Why was it so important to you that I follow the same path as Tyler? I asked. Even when it was clear I was struggling, Mom's hands tightened around her clutch purse. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. My father wanted me to be a teacher. He said law was no profession for a woman with family aspirations. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. When I insisted on law school, he told me I would fail, that I didn't have what it took to succeed in a man's field. I sat perfectly still, afraid any movement might close this unexpected window into my mother's past. The night before my LSAT, he said, Margaret, don't embarrass yourself. Know your limitations. I scored in the 98th percentile. A small, satisfied smile briefly crossed her face. I graduated third in my class at Harvard Law. First female partner at Brennan and Winthrop. You proved him wrong, I said softly. Yes. She turned to look at me directly. And I taught myself that limitations are excuses for people who don't try hard enough. That obstacles exist to be overcome through sheer determination. Understanding dawned. So when I struggled in school, I saw someone giving up, making excuses. She looked away again. I couldn't bear to see my daughter accept failure so easily. The unfairness of her assessment still stung, but for the first time, I could see the broken logic that had shaped her treatment of me. Mom had fought against external limitations imposed by others. She couldn't comprehend internal limitations that no amount of determination could overcome. Dyslexia isn't an excuse, Mom. It's a neurological difference in how my brain processes written language. No amount of determination changes that. I needed tools and accommodations, not punishment and shame. She flinched slightly at the word shame. I never intended to shame you, but you did, I said gently. Every time you compared me to Tyler, every time you dismissed my art as a hobby, every time you called me the family disappointment. Mom's eyes glistened in the soft garden lighting. I thought I was motivating you, pushing you to reach your potential, by constantly telling me I was failing, by refusing to accept mediocrity. She straightened her shoulders. My father expected me to fail, so he never pushed me to excel. I vowed I would never underestimate my children that way. The irony struck me. Instead, you overestimated what could be achieved through sheer will. You couldn't see that my brain works differently from yours or Tyler's, that I might excel in ways you hadn't anticipated. Mom was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its defensive edge. Jessica showed me your original designs, not the mass-produced versions. The actual pieces you created. She hesitated. They're extraordinary, Alvina. The technical skill, the artistic vision. I didn't know you were capable of that. The admission should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt sad. That's the problem, Mom. You never tried to know what I was capable of. You decided who I should be and punished me for being someone else entirely. Her composure finally cracked. A single tear slid down her cheek. I don't know how to be any different, Alvina. I've spent my entire adult life being exactly who I am. The vulnerability in her admission caught me off guard. Margaret Blackwell, who controlled every aspect of her world with iron determination, was admitting limitation. We could start by getting to know each other, I suggested quietly. Not as mother and disappointing daughter, but as two adult women with different strengths. She dabbed carefully at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I'm not sure I know how to do that. Neither do I admitted. But I'd like to try. Mom nodded almost imperceptibly. After a moment, she reached into her purse and removed her phone. She scrolled briefly, then held it out to me. I've had this for years. I've never shown anyone. On the screen was a photo of her office desk. Among the legal tomes and case files sat a small wire sculpture of a rose, one of my earliest pieces, created when I was 15. You kept it, I whispered. It's the first thing I see every morning when I sit down to work. She put the phone away, composing herself once more. We should return to the table. Your brother's engagement dinner has become quite overshadowed. As we stood, Mom hesitated, then reached out to adjust a strand of hair that had fallen across my face. The gesture was awkward, but unexpectedly tender. For what it's worth, she said stiffly, I am impressed by what you've accomplished. Despite everything. It wasn't an apology, but from Margaret Blackwell, it was a seismic shift. As we walked back toward the restaurant, my phone chimed with a text. I glanced down to see a message from Tyler. You okay? Jessica wants to toast your new partnership. Mom, I replied quickly. Coming back now. Progress, I think? Inside, the atmosphere had lightened considerably. Jessica was showing my cousins photos of celebrity clients wearing stellar designs. Tyler was deep in conversation with Dad, both men looking more relaxed than earlier. There you are, Jessica called as we entered. Everything okay? Mom nodded, resuming her seat with characteristic dignity. Perfectly fine. Now I believe we were discussing a business arrangement between Alvina and Stellar Accessories. Jessica glanced at me questioningly. I gave a subtle nod and she broke into a wide smile. Yes, we were. In fact, I'd like to propose a toast." She raised her champagne glass. "To new beginnings, unexpected discoveries, and family connections. And to Alvina Blackwell, whose artistic vision will help shape the future of Stellar." Everyone raised their glasses. Even Mom joined the toast, her eyes meeting mine with a new awareness. Later, as the evening wound down, Jessica pulled me aside. "I meant what I said about the contract. Take it home. Review it with an independent attorney. This partnership has to work for both of us." "I will," I promised. "But I already know I want to move forward with this." She beamed. "Wonderful. We'll start planning the transition immediately. You can visit our design studios in New York next week. And of course, we'll want you at the Boston flagship opening next month." She paused, suddenly uncertain. "Unless that's moving too quickly." "This has been quite an evening for you." I smiled, feeling a confidence I'd never experienced before. "Actually, it feels exactly right. For the first time in my life, everything is falling into place." As we said our goodbyes, Tyler hugged me tightly. "This isn't over, Allie. We have years of family stuff to work through." "I know. But tonight was a start." Dad kissed my cheek, holding on a moment longer than usual. "I'm proud of you, Alvina. I should have said that a long time ago." Mom extended her hand formally, then seemed to reconsider, and awkwardly patted my shoulder instead. "We should have lunch next week to discuss things." Coming from her, it was practically an emotional declaration. As I retrieved my car from the valet, my phone chimed again. A text from Jessica. "Forgot to mention, your room at the Four Seasons is booked for next week's NYC trip. First class all the way for our new creative director. Welcome to Stellar Family." I sat in my Honda staring at the message. Just hours ago, I had arrived at this restaurant as the family disappointment. I was leaving as a successful artist with a corporate partnership and the beginning of a healed relationship with my family. Tomorrow would bring practical concerns, lawyers, contracts, negotiations. But tonight, driving home through the quiet Boston streets, I allowed myself to simply feel the wonder of being seen. Truly seen for exactly who I am. 6 months later, I stood backstage at the Boston Convention Center, peering through a gap in the curtains at the packed audience. Fashion editors, retail buyers, and industry influencers filled the seats awaiting the unveiling of Stellar's new collection, Revelation by Alvina Blackwell. Nervous Jessica appeared beside me, resplendent in a black designer suit with one of my signature necklaces gleaming at her throat. Terrified, I admitted, smoothing the silver-gray dress I'd chosen for the occasion. "What if they hate it?" Jessica laughed. "The advance orders have already broken company records. The Neiman Marcus buyer called it revolutionary. You're not allowed to be insecure at this point." My new reality still felt surreal sometimes. The transition from independent artist to creative director had been both exhilarating and overwhelming. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of design meetings, production consultations, and media interviews. My small apartment had been exchanged for a spacious loft with a dedicated studio. My Honda traded for a car that didn't make concerning noises at stoplights. But the most profound changes had nothing to do with material success. "They're here," Jessica said, glancing at her phone. "Front row as promised." I looked out again, scanning the front row until I spotted them. Dad waved enthusiastically when he caught my eye. Beside him sat Mom, elegant, as always, in a navy blue dress. Her expression, a mixture of nervousness and pride. Tyler was there too, his arm around Jessica's empty seat, giving me a thumbs up when he noticed me watching. 5 minutes, Miss Blackwell." The stage manager appeared with a clipboard. "We're ready whenever you are." Jessica squeezed my hand. "You've got this. I'll be right there in the front row." As she left to join Tyler, I took a deep breath and reviewed the journey that had led to this moment. The week after the fateful engagement dinner, I had met with a top intellectual property attorney recommended by Jessica. We'd spent hours reviewing the contract, making adjustments to ensure my creative control and proper compensation. The final agreement included not only my role as creative director, but also retroactive royalties for all previous sales of my designs. The financial security it provided still seemed unreal. More challenging than the business transition had been rebuilding my relationship with my family, particularly my mother. Our promised lunch the week after the dinner had been stilted and uncomfortable. Decades of established patterns couldn't be erased in one evening of revelations. But we had persisted. Weekly lunches became routine, each one slightly less awkward than the last. Mom had even visited my studio, watching in uncharacteristic silence as I demonstrated wire wrapping techniques. "It's like surgical precision," she had commented, finally understanding that my work required its own form of discipline and expertise. The breakthrough had come 2 months ago. Mom had arrived at our lunch with a file folder containing childhood school reports, test scores, and teacher comments. "I've been reviewing these," she said, spreading the papers between us, looking for what I missed. Together, we had traced the pattern of my early struggles with reading alongside comments about creativity and spatial reasoning. The evidence of dyslexia had been there all along, hidden in plain sight by expectations and assumptions. "I was wrong, Mom," had said finally, the words clearly difficult for her. "I'm sorry, Alvina." Coming from Margaret Blackwell, those words represented a seismic shift. Dad had been easier. Once freed from Mom's narrative about my capabilities, he had embraced my success with unrestrained enthusiasm. He proudly wore one of my tie clips to work and reported that his medical colleagues were appropriately impressed when he mentioned his daughter, the renowned jewelry designer. Tyler and I had rebuilt our relationship on new foundations of honesty and mutual respect. He had become one of my strongest advocates, handling some of the financial aspects of my new role with professional skill and brotherly protectiveness. "1 minute, Miss Blackwell." The stage manager's voice pulled me back to the present. I checked my reflection once more in the backstage mirror. At 30, I looked more confident than I ever had before. Success had not changed my appearance so much as my bearing, the way I held myself in the world. The lights dimmed and Jessica stepped onto the stage to introduce the new collection. Her voice carried clearly through the sound system. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight represents more than a new product line. It represents a journey of discovery, recognition, and artistic integrity. For years, the designs you've come to know as Stellar's signature aesthetic were created by an extraordinary artist whose name remained unknown. Tonight, we correct that oversight. Tonight, we celebrate not only beautiful jewelry, but the vision and talent of the woman who created it." The curtains parted and bright lights momentarily blinded me. I walked forward on trembling legs to join Jessica at the podium. "It is my great honor," Jessica continued to introduce Stellar's new creative director and my future sister-in-law, Alvina Blackwell. The applause washed over me as I took my place at the microphone. In the front row, my family watched with expressions ranging from Dad's beaming pride to Mom's more restrained but genuine approval. "Thank you." I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "My journey to this stage has been unconventional. For years, I created pieces at a tiny desk in a one-bedroom apartment, never imagining they would one day be featured in Vogue or worn on red carpets." I paused, gathering my thoughts. "Art has always been my voice, especially during times when I struggled to be heard in other ways. Each piece I create tells a story of transformation, metal and stone becoming something greater than their individual elements." My eyes found my mother's in the audience. She nodded slightly, understanding the parallel. "The collection we're unveiling tonight is called Revelation. It represents the power of being seen for who you truly are. Each piece contains elements that appear one way from a distance but reveal unexpected depth and complexity up close." As I spoke, models began walking the runway, showcasing necklaces, earrings, and bracelets that embodied my new aesthetic. The audience murmured appreciatively as the intricate designs caught the light. I believe that beauty often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize its value. I'm grateful to Jessica Moore and Stellar Accessories for recognizing mine. The presentation continued for 20 minutes, each piece receiving enthusiastic response. As the finale approached, I introduced the signature piece of the collection, Our final design tonight holds special meaning for me personally. It's called Family Ties, and it represents the complicated, challenging, but ultimately precious connections that shape us. The last model appeared wearing an elaborate necklace, featuring intertwined silver and gold wires, each strand distinct yet part of a cohesive whole. Set within the framework were 5 different gemstones, each capturing and reflecting light to the others. Different elements, different strengths, all connected, all valuable, I explained. This piece will be produced in a limited edition with a portion of proceeds supporting dyslexia education programs. The applause was immediate and sustained. In the front row, I saw my mother discreetly wiping a tear. After the presentation, the convention hall transformed for the reception. Industry professionals crowded around the display cases, examining the collection up close. Reporters requested interviews, photographers captured images for fashion publications. Through it all, I maintained my composure, answering questions with a confidence that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. When asked about my overnight success, I gently corrected the narrative. Actually, I've been designing for over 10 years. The recognition may seem sudden, but the work has been consistent. Eventually, I made my way to where my family waited. Dad hugged me immediately. Absolutely remarkable, Alvina. I couldn't be prouder. Tyler punched my arm lightly. Total rock star. Though I still can't believe my little sister is cooler than me now. Jessica laughed. She always was. You just didn't notice. Mom stood slightly apart, taking in the scene with observant eyes. When I approached her, she straightened my necklace with careful fingers. You were poised, she said. Professional. The collection is extraordinary. Coming from her, these simple statements held the weight of profound approval. Thank you for coming, I said. It means a lot to have you all here. Mom nodded, then surprised me by taking my hand. The family piece, with the different stones. Her voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. That was. Yes, I confirmed. The blue topaz is you. Strong, clear, traditional. The smoky quartz is Dad. Warm grounding. The citrine is Tyler. Bright. Energetic. The rose quartz is Jessica. Connecting everyone. And the labradorite is me. Labradorite, Mom questioned. It appears gray and ordinary at first glance, I explained. But when the light hits it just right, it reveals unexpected colors and depth. Mom's eyes met mine with new understanding. I've never seen it properly in the light before. The simple acknowledgement meant more than any elaborate apology. As the evening wound down, Jessica clinked a glass for attention. I'd like to propose a toast to our new creative director and the incredible success of tonight's launch. Alvina, your vision is transforming Stellar in ways we never imagined. Glasses raised around the room. I stood with my family beside me, no longer the outsider, but an integral part of both my personal and professional circles. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the displays were being carefully packed away, I found a quiet moment alone, looking around at the physical manifestation of my creativity. Designs that had emerged from my mind and hands, now valued and celebrated. I felt a sense of completion. The journey hadn't been easy. There would still be difficult conversations with my mother, moments of doubt, challenges to overcome. But I had claimed my place in the world on my own terms. The truth of who I was had finally been revealed, not just to my family but to myself. Have you ever had to stand up for your true self when others couldn't see your value? I hope this story encourages you to hold on to your unique gifts, even when those closest to you don't understand them. Sometimes the very thing that makes you different is what makes you exceptional. If you connected with Alvina's journey, please comment below, like this video, subscribe to hear more stories, and share with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by others' ability to recognize it.